4 strategies to help you breeze through long-form narration. Coming up next on this week's DeWeese Directive. Hello and welcome to this week's DeWeese Directive. I'm Bill DeWeese. And before we get into today's nitty-gritty, let me just quickly mention that my 2-day live event, Voiceover Revolution, is coming to New York and to Los Angeles. Get all the details at voiceoverrevolutionevent.com. And if for some reason you can't make it to the event, you can purchase the videos from my Las Vegas Voiceover Revolution event there as well. So today, let's talk about narration. Yeah, it's kind of looked at as kind of the stepchild of voiceover in a lot of ways by people who tend to look at commercial voiceovers as being the real voiceover work. But the reality is there is a lot of narration work. And if you're not targeting and marketing yourself to get that kind of work, you're missing out on a lot of income potential, as well as a lot of, fun and interesting work. Now, in terms of how to get that work, marketing for that work is another conversation altogether. And as a matter of fact, for help on that, you might want to check out my voiceover playbook at voiceoverplaybook.com or be a part of one of my upcoming classes like Voiceover Fast Track. And you can always contact me for more information at voiceoverexpert@gmail.com. But today I want to help you out in the technical delivery, the performance of narration. Because if you make narration a part of your mix, and I hope that you do, there are a few things that can help you get through the work, because the work can be rather lengthy at times. It's not uncommon for me to do 50 plus pages. I've done upwards of 100 pages a day of narration work. Now, when I say narration, I mean that very broadly. You can look at narration as anything from a 3-minute explainer video to a 1-hour human resources training program and everything in between. It's a very broad catch-all. But one thing narration has in common is that it requires a bit of physical strength and endurance to make it through these reads, especially when you're doing 50, 60, 100 pages in a day. It can be pretty wearing. So a few strategies to help you get through narration so that it's not such a cumbersome and exhausting experience, but something that you can do with relative ease and do on a regular basis to help build your voice-over income. So first of all, there's 4 things. And the first thing I want to talk about is having vocal strength. You need to physically have the strength to do a lot of narration work. And most of that comes from right here, kind of above the stomach and below the chest, and that little area, that muscle really that stretches across your stomach called the diaphragm. And if you are breathing incorrectly, you are expending a lot of extra energy that will exhaust you before you need to run out of fuel to do the work. So a simple place to start is to build your diaphragmatic strength. And a simple way to do that is to lie on your back, put some books across your diaphragm, across your stomach, and practice breathing. Watch your stomach going up and down as opposed to your chest going in and out. If your shoulders and your chest are moving when you breathe, you're breathing from your chest, and you are not using your most powerful muscle for speaking, especially for long periods of time, which is the diaphragm. So you want to make sure that you breathe from the diaphragm so that you can go the distance, because narration is more like running a marathon, whereas recording commercials is more like running a sprint. It just requires a different set of muscles, a different mindset, and perhaps retooling your skill set just a bit. So begin by building the strength of your diaphragm. The other thing that you can do is to build your breath support so that you can read for longer periods of time, because much of the narration that you'll see is not really written with you, the voice talent, in mind. In other words, punctuation may be lacking. There may be run-on sentences. And I say this from experience because I would say about half of my work, maybe more of my daily work, is narration work. And so it's not uncommon for me to get poorly written scripts or scripts that have run-on sentences that lack, punctuation, in which it really helps to be able to read for long periods of time without taking a lot of breaths. And a simple exercise for doing that is to just take one of those run-on sentences that you get in a project and practice reading it, going longer each time without taking a breath. So maybe at first you can only get through 5 or 6 words without taking a breath. Well, every day practice. See if the next day you can build up to 7 words without taking a breath, the next 8 or 9 words. And before you know it, you'll be getting through long run-on sentences without the need to suck air and oxygen into your lungs to make it through the script. So that's another way that you can build your strength. The number 2 thing after strength is pace. I find that in working with the voice talent that I do, and I work and coach a lot of voiceover talent, most talent tend to err on the side of reading too fast as opposed to reading too slow. Rarely do I have to say, hey, speed up the pace. It's normally, whoa, put on the brakes just a bit. And with narration, this can be a really important strategy. It seems that, and this is my observation, that subconsciously, a lot of voice talent will speed up because they're really wanting to get to the end of the script, either because they're tired or 2, they want to get there before they make a mistake. I see that in commercial work as well. But with narration, when you're on page 14 of a 28-page script, you're starting to think about getting towards the end, and you can subconsciously begin to speed up the pace. So make sure that mentally you are aware that you need to take things at a medium to slow pace. A lot of narration is meant to be absorbed by the listener. I mean, all voiceover work is meant to be absorbed, but with narration work, listeners tend to be more active as opposed to commercials where listeners tend to be more passive. It's in the background. They're doing other things. But with narration, they may be sitting to watch or hear a presentation. Perhaps it's e-learning at work, a number of scenarios, but oftentimes it's very active listening. So going a little slower, slowing the pace down will allow the listener to follow along more easily and to absorb and to learn and to retain the information. So again, number 2 is your pace. Slow things down. Number 3 is projection, the strength of your voice. And if you've ever been involved in musical theater, which I haven't, but I have been told, and all my kids have been, is that you're often told to speak to the back of the room in a theatrical type presentation. In voiceover, that's usually not the case. You usually don't want to speak to the back of the room. And that can be a huge detriment in recording narration because you will wear yourself out in a hurry. So tip 3, projection, is to make sure that you're speaking to an imagined person, an ear, that is maybe 5 or 6 inches from your mouth, so that instead of projecting out to the back of the room, you're bringing it back here. And it will do 2 things. Number 1, it will conserve your energy. And number 2, it will make the person listening feel like they're being spoken to personally, as opposed to being presented to and yelled at. So 3, projection. Keep that in mind. And my 4th and final tip is breathing. Now, you've got to breathe, quite often, as a matter of fact, in narration, but how do you do that without drawing attention to it? Breathing is okay. Nobody expects that you'll read a narration without breathing. They don't even expect usually that they won't be able to hear it. What you don't want to do is draw unnecessary attention. Now, when you breathe from your chest, when your shoulders and your chest are moving in and out and up and down when you breathe, typically that's a loud breath. But if you breathe from your diaphragm, which we talked about in my first bullet point here, it will tend to be a quieter breathing. And what you can do, a practice that I do, is that I sneak breaths, even where there's no punctuation. As a matter of fact, I pulled out here a run-on sentence from a project that I was working on today. And there's no way that I could get through this without taking a breath. And there are no periods. Well, there's a period at the end of this 6-line sentence, but there are no commas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this for you and pay close attention and listen for some subtle breaths. So what I'm going to do is sip air occasionally. I'm not going to take a big breath, but from my diaphragm, I'm going to breathe in just little sips of air as I go along when I run out of air, and listen to how I do this. Workout Quality Control also performs multiple checks on SCRA-protected loans throughout the period of protection to verify the service member's active duty status and the beginning and end dates of their military service. I breathed, if I was counting correctly, about 3 or 4 times. And if you missed it, go back and watch the video again and watch how I just subtly took in and I sipped in some very small breaths. These 4 strategies will allow you to be more effective in recording narration, particularly long-form narration. There's a lot of that work out there. And if you make that part of your mix, which you definitely should if you want to be a full-time voice talent or want to increase your income, these strategies will help you go the distance. Thanks for checking out this video. If you haven't, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll get notifications of all of my latest videos, and be sure to share this throughout your social networks and all of your voiceover friends. I look forward to talking to you real soon.